Now this feather ending. The main thing that we talked about today on our Zoom lessons was to get your shape and sway correct. So you have gotten yourself into a better dance frame in general, but what was happening is you were keeping a little bit of left shape or left sway. The head was pulled a little bit leftward there as you were dancing the feather ending. So what we have on a feather step, feather ending, feather finish is on the quicks we have a sway to the right. So of course we're always talking about that sway coming through the base and being reflected in the top. So the ankles, knees, hips, and we're particularly focusing on the hips so that we're not dropping our sways through the arms and through the upper back. So my right hip now is going to have to move down towards the floor. Now the sway in the foxtrot shows up just a little bit later than it does in the waltz. But that doesn't mean that we don't prepare. So because every time that we walk, we must control our hip, we must not sit. There's going to be a similar feeling there. And as I go into my rise, I will feel that hip driving a little bit more down or a little bit more towards the navel, however you want to think about it. There. But in the waltz, it feels a little bit earlier, starting at the lowest point and then swinging up. I think you'll feel this more just in the structure and music of the foxtrot. It's just very logical. So when I come off of my impetus turn, if I make a mistake here and sit, now I've got a very droopy right side, so I could end up doing this. So you've trained yourself better than that. You're trying to stay left, but then what's happening is you're not getting the change in the shape and in the sway. Now this is a very tricky place. This reminds me of dancing a chasse towards the center in waltz, turning left, bringing my lady around in front of me. These are certain figures or combinations where there's a lot of pressure on our girl. So I'll back up as much as I can. So here comes my lady into her feather ending. So she's going this way, and when she ends up, she has quite a bit of turn to make to be going in the other direction, where the man generally is going straight. His alignment doesn't change. He has to make a very slight change in his position of his frame in order to allow that unwind to happen. It's actually a very natural thing for me to do if I understand the coiling and uncoiling of my body. If I take this step correctly as lady, I'm really, really wound up because my center is very much to my partner. My head weight is on the outside and my arms are to my partner. It's very natural to be square. So that would be a mistake to start with. But having wound up our body, the most natural thing in the world is to unwind. Of course, we have to do more extreme in dancing because we also want to achieve a certain shape. So as lady, when I turn my head, as my legs swing out, I'm going to make sure that I take my head all the way back to close and not just to straight. So she has a lot to do. It's very, very easy for the man to become a little overzealous, move a little too fast, and between the slow and the quick, to run her over. This would be the same if I was dancing a chasse closing my girl in front of me. I have to slack off a little bit. So you could say on every feather, as you slip outside partner, you have to cool down a little bit. So, but this one particularly because she has such a big turn to make. I'm almost exactly where I need to be. My arms need to be with my girl. My center needs to be with my girl. When I slip my foot outside partner, we're still in this position. But I've got to indicate to her that I want her to close. So I very slightly have to move my frame leftward. Very slightly. I know some coaches will tell the men, don't do anything. But I've done enough pro-am to know that if you tell the man to not do anything, he's either going to obey you or he's going to do something else. And usually what I find is the man does not really understand that he has got to allow the lady to close. There is a sympathetic action I've got to do there. Otherwise I will hold my girl in promenade, do my step, and she's caught under my arm. So I like to think of, as the man, every time that I dance any kind of a feather, that I'm going to try to advance my lady's hips in front of me. You definitely need to realize that your lady has to come around in front of you and not be trapped in the back. So while we'll keep everything pretty much the way it is here, as my right hip moves down, my hands will move slightly towards my left leg to encourage her turn. And then I'll make sure again not to drop my head into the lady or to pull left into a left sway. I'm in the right sway, my arms are in front of me, and the head weight is pulled out here. Now the slow coming up, technically that is part of the feather ending. Now you find this everywhere in Foxtrot, that quick, quick, slow. So if we dance the feather finish, this slow is always part of the technique. Now that has been changed on the WDSF syllabus. We started to go in terms of counting slow, quick, quick. And sometimes in learning, our mind can see that better. But the original technique was written with the quick, quick, slow, or the upswing, followed by the walk as the structure of the dance. And it has some musical background to that, which we won't go into right now, but whenever you look for a reference in the book, you'll see that additional step at the end. It's very good to keep that idea in, because of course it's good training to see if you can stop here. Not too many people can, but it's just as good to be able to do that blending, because that is probably the most difficult part of the foxtrot. This feather and this motion here of continuing to move the lady back in front of me while my heel comes to the ground, my legs pass through, my shape changes from outside partner to closed. I gradually lose my sway and start into the next reverse action. So that's a lot, but there's a lot more to feather steps and feather endings, but for our purposes right now of maintaining the correct shape in your body, changing your sway from left to right, and understanding where the lady is going to go. Those will be our main thrust today.